So, welcome to another episode. Today we have David Bederman on, who is a spiritual teacher, speaker, and behavioural strategist. So, welcome to today's show, David.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. And I saw from sort of your background and your knowledge base that you've got quite an array of topics that you like to talk about. And I think one of the things that caught my eye was obviously the Kabbalah side, but the personality code, because I'm very interested in when people come up with new ideas or these follow these 48 laws of power or whatever it may be. So, what is the personality code from your standpoint?
So basically, my whole life has kind of been a journey to understand behavior and the human experience. From a very young age, I felt like I was very different than everybody around me. And for a long time, I really struggled to find myself. I had a lot of emotions. I was very sensitive to energy, to people, and I struggled to find my place in the world. And I also struggled to find a model for somebody else who had a similar experience to me. And so for a long time, I just came to the conclusion, well, everyone else seems to be happy and seems to be dealing with life and living in the world and having love. And maybe there's just something wrong with me. I felt very different. And so I just concluded that I was broken in some way. And I tried for many years to hide it. But in the back of my mind, always there was this broken record playing, asking the questions like, who am I? Why am I here? Why was the world created? What's my purpose? What's the secret of happiness? What's the meaning of life? And it was just on repeat. And I remember I was living on a sailboat in Western Canada, and on the outside, everything looked beautiful. I was sailing around to beautiful islands. I had a great business, but inside, these unanswered questions were gnawing at me. And so um, I went on a journey to find the meaning of life and the secret of happiness. And that journey took me to the biblical land of Israel, to the old city of Jerusalem, where I met an amazing teacher who kind of took me under his wing and taught me some of the ancient secrets of the universe from the Kabbalah. Um, and the Kabbalah literally means to received. It's the received tradition, the kind of the mystical building blocks of the world. And for me, this really opened up my whole world in terms of understanding behavior and personality. And it kind of gave me a roadmap to understand myself and to realize that I was not broken, but I, just like everyone else in the world, have their own unique wiring. And what I call is the personality code.
So, it's interesting you say that because I think people feel that it's a unique situation, that they feel that everyone else is different. And if you look at everyone's situation, they probably feel the same, that I'm in a room full of people that are on different paths, different wavelengths, have different interests, as you said, different personalities, etc. And it's interesting that we throughout history have had these same existential questions of who am I, what and why am I here, who sent me here, what am I here to do and accomplish. And it's interesting that we've had those questions that really drive our day-to-day actions and our ambitions, goals, etc. And it's interesting that everyone has a very similar story in that respect, that they maybe went down the wrong path at some point and they took a left path when they should have took a right path. And they realized somewhere along that path or road is that something's not quite right. It doesn't feel from an intuition standpoint that things are going right. And the whole purpose thing that you said as well, it comes back to sort of Sartre versus Aristotle. That Aristotle said that we have like a telos, which is an innate purpose that we. It's like with a tree. A tree is created to grow certain fruit or whatever. Whereas Sartre believed that we develop our purpose through our own actions, essentially. So, based on your introspection from what you sort of alluded to during your younger years, do you feel that you've sort of found a purpose, or that you've created it based on your personality, as you said?
Great question. I would say gratefully and thankfully, that yes, I am definitely living my purpose, and my purpose has become to teach this language to people around the world to help them understand not only themselves, but to dramatically improve the quality of their relationships and their life. Because what happens more often than not is we are raised in a world that kind of pushes us to kind of fit into one of several boxes, and you should be this or you should be that, you should be a doctor or a lawyer. And so people instead of learning how to draw out their own unique gifts and talents, we're kind of forced onto a stage where we are, kind of round pegs being forced into square boxes. And I think that's a big part of the great unhappiness that I think a lot of people are experiencing in the world today. And the power of the teachings of the personality code is that it reveals the unique wiring that each of us have. And I like to explain it like an analogy. Just like there's one electricity coming into your room right now, and it's powering your lights and your air conditioner, and your stereo system. So each one of those devices is wired in a very specific way to make use of that energy in a different way to perform its own unique function. And so, what is the definition of happiness? What does it mean to feel fulfilled? Well, fulfillment is when you turn on the light switch and the electricity flows through the light bulb, and the light bulb lights up the room, and he gets filled with this sense of joy, like, wow, I look at all these conversations that I'm enabling because of the light that I'm giving off. Look how happy the people are because of all the light in their room. Wow, I just love being a light bulb. It's heaven. That's happiness. But what's sadness? What's frustration? What does it mean to feel unfilled? It's when the light bulb spends his whole day kind of looking at the air conditioner and saying, "Oh, I wish I could just, conduct the electrons in a certain way and figure out how to cool the air. I mean, look how much joy it brings people, and unfortunately, I think that's what's happening with so many people today is they're living lives that are out of alignment with their own unique wiring simply because they've never been taught this language. And so they don't understand how to draw out their unique gifts. And so they're kind of spending their life as a light bulb, trying to be or wishing they were an air conditioner, and it's really frustrating. And yet when you understand how you're built and what makes you unique, all of a sudden then you can focus on the things that really light you up. And I think the world becomes a lot more exciting and a lot more fun place to live when more people are living on purpose in their purpose.
Absolutely, and I think as you sort of alluded to, there seems to be a mismatch between people's natural skills and their wants in terms of what they want to give to the world and actually what they end up doing, just because of maybe society said, look, you need to grab into these boxes in order to be seen as established, etc., etc. But I think that is changing with sort of skill stacking now, where there are people who, let's say, they're an IT coder who speaks French, who can also speak publicly. Like when you have multiple skills, you can be very unique in that way that only you can talk in that particular way, or whether it's yourself, the personality code, Kabbalah, etc. And with the light bulb example, what that sort of reminds me of is that there are radiators and there are drains. Some people radiate and try and change, whereas other people are drainers. And what you want to try and be is a radiator to radiate your energy or your message to the world. Coming back to what you said about sort of finding your purpose, etc., do you feel that it's a case of solitude in order to get rid of any distractions? Because obviously, if you're on your phone 6 hours a day and you're around people 5 hours a day and they are sort of feeding you with information and ideas, do you feel that that has an impact in you being able to actually look in and see what it is that you want to be or are in order to actually change and adapt?
Yeah, great question. I think 1,000%. We all need to kind of find the balance between being in the world and being by ourselves. And I think it's a very important balance because the in order to get access to the inner wisdom that we all have, we really need to remove ourselves from all of the distractions. And every tech company today, they're spending billions of dollars all for the same purpose, to figure out how to grab more of our attention. And so it's drawing us deeper into all of these apps, which are designed only to keep us engaged. And when we're engaged with anyone or anything or any other person's mission, we're disconnected from ourselves. And so taking times of solitude, meditation, this is the opportunity to really tune deeper and to access our own still quiet voice. And that's really where we access the inspiration, our intuition. And I think this is the big challenge today, is that most of us weren't really taught how to access our intuition. So we don't know how to listen to ourselves. We don't know how to hear ourselves. We don't know how to tune into our own guidance. And so we tend to look outside of ourselves and be guided by so many external sources, showing us what we should do. I should start a drop shipping company. I should get this job. I should ask for a raise. And we're always drawn by external influences. But the truth is, each one of us has access to our own unique wisdom. And this is why coaching is so powerful, is because a lot of the time the coaching that I'm doing is just helping people access the wisdom, the answers that they already have inside them. But there's so much noise and there's so many distractions today. So it really does interrupt the flow of our own connection with ourself. And I think the more people can take moments of solitude, whether that's daily meditation at the beginning of the day, where you're just sitting quietly and tuning in, that's where the clarity comes. And that's where people can start to tune into their own inner guidance. And that's really where a lot of the happiness and the fulfillment that I think most of us on the planet today are looking for, I think that's where it comes from. And I think you hit it right on the nail.
Yeah, for me, it's a big thing to understand that everyone's different in terms of personality. Some people want just a job that they are purely fulfilled in terms of it's not about money, it's not about any level of status. It's purely the joy of them doing that job, if you want to call it a job, as much as possible. That's going to give them a fulfilled life. On the flip side, you get the mercenaries where it's by any means necessary, I need money, power, status. And that is, for me, it's still a personality trait. For this person, the one that just wants a joyous experience, that's going to feel disgusting to them. Doing anything just to get the capital and go up the corporate ladder. But for the mercenary guy, the one that literally just wants the status, the power, for him to do a job, even if he enjoys doing it, he's going to feel unfulfilled in respect that he feels he's wasting time in a job or activity that isn't going to elevate him through the financial world, if you want to call it that. But what I tend to find most of because obviously that's sort of two ends of the spectrum, what you tend to find most of the time is people who have one, two, or three things they want to be doing because it doesn't always have to be one. Purpose doesn't have to be, I will only wash cars. It doesn't really work like that. And they are working in a corporate job and they're torn between, do I climb the corporate ladder job by job, role by role, and I'm sort of coerced by this increasing pay scale and increasing status within a smaller hierarchy, i.e., the workplace? Or do I take the hit and start my own thing when I know there's no guarantee of income, but I become my own man? Because this is one of the most horrible things, I think, and I've been thinking about this over the last 6 months. One of the most wasteful things for a human being to do is to, when they are born and when they are young, is for their sole ambition to be, I want to get a job at Google. I mean, if we just think about that, your whole life is to be a second part in someone else's master plan. And I think that people are starting to realize that they don't want to be that. They want to do their own thing. What's your view on that?
Well, yeah, I think you're exactly right. And the challenge is that a lot of times, like when I work with companies and teams, that we discover that we have the right people who are in the wrong positions. And what's powerful about the personality code, for example, is it breaks down behavior into 10 different types of people, 10 different journeys. And so you have people who are very cerebral, and that's their strength. You know, they're very analytical and they love processing information, and they're great at kind of delineating all the different ideas and boiling everything down. And then you get some people who are very emotional and very empathetic. And so, you know, you get someone who's very driven and very success driven versus somebody who's very emotional and very sensitive. And so you get someone who's emotional and sensitive and they're like in a sales position. It doesn't always work because they have so many ups and downs, and they're sensitive, and their confidence, can rise and fall. And so it really, I find that fulfillment in jobs, in work, really boils down to understanding your unique gifts and then finding that journey that will allow you to kind of feel like you're making the contribution that you were born to make. And for a lot of people, that is starting their own thing, the path of entrepreneurship. But the path of entrepreneurship also it's not for everyone. And, being a meaningful part of somebody else's mission is great if you can find your place in that. So I find that helping people kind of discover their unique gifts is the key, because whatever your gifts are, whatever your superpower is, and we all have one, your superpower is also always your blind spot. It's always the place that you need to grow. So if you're very success oriented and you're very driven, so you're likely very confident and you can get a lot done and you have a lot of energy. But the downside is that a lot of times those people are out of touch with their own emotional experience. They also struggle with being vulnerable, which shows up in relationships. They have a hard time creating meaningful and lasting relationships because their superpower for uh, being driven and being successful and being seen as successful gets in the way from them actually touching and expressing their own vulnerability. So I find that to really find your path and your fulfillment means learning to discover your unique gifts, but also learning to work through some of the unconscious blocks that show up as a result of your superpower. And I think that's also just as important for achieving the kind of balance that we need to grow as people and to ultimately find the way of contributing to the world that's the most meaningful for us.
It's interesting. You sort of say that about not everyone is going to be a good entrepreneur because I think most people think that everyone should be an entrepreneur, but you can't have everyone being the chef. Too many chefs spoil the broth, as they say. And you can't have everyone being a general. And actually, a lot of people are actually quite happy the fact they're not the entrepreneur, they're not the leader, they're not the one that has to be 100% competent. The book doesn't stop with them, and actually, they can sort of lay a lot of responsibility off to someone superior to them, and they can sort of take a back seat and have an easy life. And again, it's down to individual people and their personality, because for some people, they literally cannot be asked to deal with the shit because most of the shit goes up the stream. Bad customer goes up to the assistant manager, then the manager, then it might go up to the CEO. So actually, the people at the top often deal with the most shit because they have to. The bigger deals, the horrible conversations, and a lot of people aren't willing to to deal with that. You mentioned, or you have mentioned, relationships quite a few times. Do you mean relationships with others or the relationship with yourself?
That's a great question. And I believe that it's all the same thing. because we can only ever love somebody else in a romantic context to the level that we love ourselves, and to the place where to the point where we judge ourselves, right? To the point where we fall short of our own expectations. And when we judge ourselves, when we dislike certain parts of ourselves, on that same level, we will tend to judge other people when they fall short of our expectations. And so I find that one of the most important things in romantic relationships is learning how to first foster a really deep sense of self-love, which means learning how to accept and appreciate yourself and even the parts of yourself that still need work. And the more that we do that, the more we are able to love and appreciate other people and our significant other, and that really is the glue that holds a relationship together. But it's really the foundation that enables any relationship to happen. And it's the same, with any relationship, your professional relationship, your family, your friends, to the way we do anything is the way we do everything. And so if we're constantly in a stream of self-judgment and negative self-judgment, judging ourselves when we fall short of becoming the person we want to be, if we're always judging ourselves, then we're always going to be judging other people. And judgment is not it's not conducive to relationship. Judgment creates distance. But when you are able to accept and appreciate and love yourself and appreciate this journey of growth that we are all on, when that becomes your default conversation, when it's acceptance and love and appreciation, then that also becomes the how you deal with other people. And everyone wants to be in a connection with someone who is accepting and who is loving and who is caring. And I think that's what caring is. Caring is it's a skill, and it's the ability to accept and appreciate a person for who they are and where they are, rather than uh, holding them to a high bar and only accepting them, if they achieve a certain thing. And I think that boils down to um, what we call unconditional love. This is the love that we all longed for from our parents, but most of us didn't get. It's very hard to love somebody unconditionally if you didn't have the experience of being loved unconditionally. And most of us, we were raised by parents, and parents are just people, and I'm a parent. And so I find when I'm not having the best day, it's very difficult for me to be tolerant and accepting of my children when they make a mistake or when they do something that challenges me. But when I'm able to kind of love them no matter what, that's where real connection is possible. But most of us didn't get that kind of unconditional love as growing up, so we don't know how to love ourselves unconditionally. And really, the journey of learning how to love ourselves unconditionally, right? The love that I have for myself, it's not dependent on my performance and my achievement. When the way I feel about myself is consistent and unchanging, independent of anything that I'm doing, when I'm able to have that deep, unwavering and unconditional love for myself, that is what allows me to have that for other people, and that's what allows deeper, more meaningful relationships to happen, I believe.
I think though sometimes, as with anything, to actually have uh, love for yourself, sometimes you need to be hard on yourself, I think, to help push yourself to. Because if, let's say, for example, I could just sit, I don't know, smoking weed all day, taking cocaine, heroin, and be like, oh, I love myself. But I think there needs to be some sort of balance between loving the situation or how you're currently performing, but also setting yourself targets. And it's coming back to the relationship side. I made a video the other day about the Gollum effect versus the Pygmalion effect, and how this affects both yourself and others. And it's really interesting. You talked about judging other people, etc. So basically, the Gollum effect is where if you talk bad about someone, oh, you're so messy, you're so untidy, they actually become more like that. So if you've got a partner and you're saying, oh, you're so angry all the time, you're so messy, you're so dirty, they're more likely to become like that versus the opposite, which is the Pygmalion effect. If you say, oh, thanks for being so diligent at work today, thanks for being on time, and all of those sorts of things, actually that can improve the level of that relationship, whether it's a manager colleague, whether it's husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend, or friends, you can actually elevate each other and yourself if you speak to yourself in a way that allows you to conform to your standards. Because what a lot of people do is, as you said, don't sort of love themselves. They put themselves down, which is very different to setting standards, and say, "Oh, you're such an idiot. You always do this. You're never going to make it." And actually, that becomes a snowball effect on the downward trend that you become more like the thing that you keep telling yourself you are or to other people.
Yeah, I think it's a great point that you brought up, actually. And, like you're saying, we can just smoke weed and drink alcohol all day and, say that I love myself. But really, I think it's actually the opposite. I think it's actually the opposite that's happening. Is that why are so many people self-medicating with, drugs, alcohol, pornography, whatever, eating, television? What are all these distractions accomplishing? Is that they're kind of covering over the discomfort and the pain that most people have from lack of self-acceptance. And really the main factor in feeling good in life is feeling good with yourself, comes from accepting and loving yourself. But the challenge is that most people don't accept themselves and they don't love themselves. And when your parent rejects you, I don't think there's anything more painful for a person than being rejected by somebody they care about. And even more so when we reject ourselves, it's the same pain. And I think it's the deepest form of pain. And I think it's what most people are doing on a constant basis because they've been raised with the belief that in order to grow, I need to be hard on myself. Because most of the time, our parents were hard on us, pushing us to grow, to do better, because they only wanted the best for us. But what happens is it trains us to believe that I'm not worthy of love unless I achieve X, Y, or Z. And so that trains us into this constant state of self-judgment. And when you're judging yourself, right? When you're a good boy, bad boy. You're not a bad boy. Your decisions maybe were not the best decisions, but I think so many of us have been trained to judge ourselves and to not accept ourselves unless we achieve a certain level of accomplishment. That's what causes all of that pain. And I think so many people today are in a constant state of self-rejection. They're rejecting parts of themselves. They don't feel like they're achieving enough. And that's what's creating all of this existential pain. And well, how do I deal with this pain? I don't feel good. I'm in pain. So they cover over the pain. And everyone has their own way of dealing with that pain. And that's what becomes the addictions that we have in life. And so some people will drink or smoke weed or eat food in order to kind of feel better. But what's really happening is they're just covering over the pain that's coming from a lack of self-love.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right in terms of you can't tie your happiness to an achievement. If I get this car, I'll be happy. If I get this new job, I'll be happy because it's the whole hedonic treadmill, isn't it? Where you're continually running and chasing this new thing. So, and instead we can, instead of tying it to achievement, just tying it to the fact that you're doing the right things. This is what I try and do is that if I'm doing the right things, you don't always have to see the the income increase or this improves. Sometimes just doing the right things all of the time in the future, maybe you get the achievement. You don't know, but it's the whole bamboo stick example
Sure.
where you've planted it and it will maybe take 5 years to grow, versus trying to have an instant prize for what you've done. And what's the saying? It's better to judge the days on or the day on the seeds that you plant versus the harvest that you reap, which is I think is
That
important. But just to touch on one point you said as well, just before I forget, I think there's a big important thing that you said as well, is that the self-love and the self-esteem can affect other things. So like people self-sabotage a lot, the weed, the drink, whatever, because they don't if they're up here at a 5 out of 10, they self-sabotage to take themselves back to a 3 because that's what their self-esteem level is.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I think that something that you said, if I'm just doing the right things, I think the point is that we're never going to do all the right things. We're constantly going to screw up, and our lives are really, according to Kabbalah, your life is a never-ending journey of growth and self-discovery. And so life is like many people have this vision of life of trying to, get to their goal in the shortest amount of time. I want to do the right things and I don't want to do the wrong things. But more often than not, we're going to make mistakes because we are imperfect beings. According to the Kabbalah, we are imperfect beings who were put in an imperfect world to engage in this journey of never ending growth and self discovery. And so, the mistake I think a lot of people are making is that they're trying to do the right thing and not the wrong thing. And so, when they make a mistake, they're very, very hard on themselves and they believe that the goal of life is to be perfect. Where, according to Kabbalah, your imperfections are what make you perfect because you weren't designed to be perfect. In fact, what is perfection? It's like perfection can be seen like a straight line, a perfect straight line. I want to become a doctor, and so I'm going to do everything perfectly. I'm going to do amazing in school, and I'm going to become a doctor in the shortest amount of time. But more often than not, things happen and you fail a test and you don't do as well as you thought you would, and the journey takes longer than we anticipate and than we wanted. And so it's like when things are going great and we're achieving, we congratulate ourselves and we love ourselves. But then when things take a dip and we make a mistake, that's when we're hard on ourselves. But I think that is actually the opposite of how we create happiness in life. Because if you ever go in to visit someone in the hospital, right, and they're hooked up to a heart monitor, and you see that perfect straight line on the heart monitor, right, that's actually a very bad sign. It's perfect. They have that perfect heart monitor line, but that means they're dead, right? What do you want to see? You want to see this like constant up and down pattern on the monitor. That's a healthy life. And it's interesting because mystically, the world we live in, it's showing us that same up and down pattern 24 hours a day, 7 days a week across every aspect of the physical world, right? The sound that we're communicating with right now is a vibration. It's an up and a down vibration. The light that we're seeing each other with is also an up and down vibration. The chairs that we're sitting on, everything in our physical world is vibrating. There is nothing in the physical world that is static because that static perfection, that straight line has nothing to do with the journey of achieving fulfillment and success. Your imperfections are what make you perfect because we are all here to navigate this up and down journey, just like the waves in the ocean. Like I call it the surfer's mentality. If you want to live a fulfilling life, if you want to be happy, you need to understand the surfer's mentality. Because a surfer, right, what do they want? They want to get up on the wave. But they don't make the mistake of thinking that the goal of surfing is to get up on the wave and to stay there and to ride it forever, right? That makes no sense. a surfer understands that they're going to get up on the wave and it's going to be awesome and they're going to ride it. People are going to take pictures and they're going to look great and have fun. But at some point, the wave is going to crash, you know, and maybe they're going to miss it. They're going to try to get up on the wave and they're going to miss it. Maybe the wave's going to crash on top of them. But no surfer gets depressed when they fall off the wave because they understand that there's always more waves coming. And in fact, they're always anticipating the waves that are coming behind them. They understand that the perfection of surfing is not to get up on the wave and stay there forever. The perfection of surfing is to enjoy the entire experience, the ups and the downs. And if you can enjoy the entire experience of life, the ups and the downs that are always being given to us in every day and in every moment, that's how you win the game of life.
Absolutely. There's no straight lines in nature. It's all, what you said, ups, downs. For every mountaintop, you need a valley. And we seem to have an obsession with the mountaintop, even though in order to have the mountaintop, you have to have a valley with the juxtaposition in order to give you that perspective. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think failure is a great thing. We need to fail. Failure actually gets you closer to success anyway. So the thing is, people don't start things or try things because they have a fear of failure and fear of rejection, and as you've already mentioned, and that actually hinders you. But as you've rightly said, you need to love that part of it. We all love stories, rags to riches. He made it all, lost it all, and got it back. Yet we don't understand. We're in our own story, and we're now in this chapter two, where we are in a bad situation, and sometimes that's the best part of the story for a reader, but maybe not to be the character. But we have to understand sometimes that's necessary if you want to enjoy the whole story, as you said, or love the experience, love the journey of life, whatever. We need to have that mentality that, yep, there's going to be bad points. You don't have an, even if you look at the stock market, it doesn't go, even if it's a company that's gone up historically for 10 years, it doesn't go, it goes up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, down. It might get a little bit of more of a down, more of an up, whatever, but it doesn't just go as a perfectly straight line. You need buyers, you need sellers, you need good and the bad, and everything is opposites, male, female, whatever. You need the opposites, and we have this, as you said, this illusion of wanting to stay at the top of the wave when in reality that's not how it works.
Yeah, I liked what you said, and it actually reminded me of the wisdom of the yin yang, right? And if you take the yin yang and you kind of turn it sideways, you see exactly a perfect sine wave. And this really is the kind of the metaphor for life, because the yin yang is really the unification of opposites. It's that, the good and the bad, the happy and the sad, summer, winter, masculine, feminine. These are all two parts of the same experience. And you were talking about success. People want a success and they want to avoid failure. But the truth is there's no such thing as success. Success is a lie. It doesn't exist. It's like it's like walking, right? There's no such thing as walking, right? Walking is just the word that we've given to the action of learning how to fall gracefully from one foot to the other, and when we're very small, we don't know how to walk. We don't fall gracefully from one foot to the other at all. We fall very ungracefully, and most of the time we're falling back on our diaper and struggling to get back up again. But that's the truth about success. There's no such thing as success. Success is the word that we have given to the act of learning how to embrace the creative power of failure, of how to embark on an imperfect journey of building a business, and taking some action, making some mistakes, learning from it, and improving and making more mistakes. And it's like that imperfect journey of attempting something and stepping into the imperfect journey and creating through the creative power of failure. All of a sudden, you've achieved certain things. But success as an idea doesn't really exist, because when you think about success, well, most people want success, but they don't want failure. But actually, success is like the peak of the mountain, and the mountain is all of the ups and the downs, all of the failures that we've been brave enough to embark upon, and to not be afraid of being judged and not be afraid of not succeeding, right? When you're willing to just screw up enough times and to keep going, that's how you get to the top of the mountain. That's what everyone's calling success, but you can't get there unless you're brave enough to embark on this imperfect journey of failing over and over and over again. And when you can fall in love with failure, that's how you create success.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm big on this that you're better off doing something terrible than not doing it at all. People like say, I don't want to do it, I'm going to be awful. That is such a bad attitude. I can't even start to explain how bad that attitude is. Everyone who is anything in this world, footballer, basketball player, I mean, athletes are the easy example, aren't they? You know, they boxers, they were all shit at one point on their first class. They were terrible. Now look at them because they've been hit in the face, they've gone through this failure. And it's interesting what you said as well about, well, still on this topic of success. It's like Alan Watts says, if music was judged on being good by how fast it was, there'd be no music because people would just do like 0.01 seconds just to get to the end of the song. It's the whole experience of the song, the slow start, the build up, the middle crescendo, whatever you want to call it, the main part, and then dialing it down at the end. You need that building of emotion in a piece in order to for it to be classified as good. But we, for some reason, we understand all this. We, you could ask most people, they sort of get this, but the application of this to themselves is the difficult part. And people watch motivational videos or listen to religious dogma or whatever else, and they all kind of say the same thing. There is some disparity about some of the jargon used, or maybe a few little parables here, or the particular description of a certain thing is slightly different. But fundamentally, most religions or philosophy-based history are kind of saying the same thing. That it is an internal thing. We are battling ourselves. We need to have that internal growth, understand that there are good and bad things, be good to other people, etc., etc., etc. Find your purpose and all this. And it's interesting that we all still have the same conversation, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, I think you're entirely right. And I would say the reason that more people don't achieve the kind of success that they all want in life is because there's a difference between information and transformation. So, like you said, most of us know what we should be doing. We know what the right choice is, but it's much harder to implement and take action because the information doesn't bring you to the transformation, right? There's a journey that we have to go on. But in order to take the steps that we need to take in order to achieve whatever it is we want, if you want to start your own business, so you need to take certain actions. But in order to take those actions, you need to have a certain amount of discipline and you need to have a certain amount of knowledge. And what gets in the way of taking those actions is really the confidence and the belief in ourselves to get there. And that's why I say that at the core of all success and at the core of creating the kind of life that you want to be living, the core really starts with self-love. Because in order to have the confidence that you need to take consistent action, you need to have a state where you're feeling good. And most people, if they're constantly judging themselves and constantly beating up on themselves, it leaves them feeling that deep pain of rejection all the time. And so then they're covering over, well, they don't feel good. So then, well, what do I do to feel good? I'm going to just, I'll smoke a joint or I'll have a drink and then I feel good. But all of that gets in the way of taking the actions that we need to make the transformation. That's why the journey of coaching, for example, is so powerful, because it helps people understand the places where they're abandoning or rejecting themselves. And that's what takes away from a person's power. That's what takes away from a person's ability to feel energized and be able to take the actions they need to succeed. And so it's the difference between knowing what to do, but actually having the internal energy and the belief in yourself to do it. That's the journey of transformation. And that's what the journey of entrepreneurship trains you for on the way, because any endeavor that you start, whether you're starting your own business or you're launching a podcast, it's like you're going to get rejected over and over and over again. But your ability to withstand that rejection and to keep going, that's what creates success. And it's the same. It's your ability to avoid the rejection of yourself is what prepares you and fuels you, and fuels you with a strong sense of self-esteem. And that's the foundation for really being able to transform your life and create whatever type of life that you want for yourself.
Absolutely. And I love how you said about the coaching side of things. And well, you mentioned coaching again there, but you obviously mentioned it earlier, is that you're drawing something out of someone. And as a coach myself, I know this, that it's not about telling people. Think, oh, you're going to be a guru and tell me everything. And I should say, okay, well, go and live in Australia for 6 months, okay, get a job on a farm, okay, and then come back and go to New York and get a job on. It doesn't work like that. You are trying to draw out the answers from within. Now, it comes to my question, that intuition, that same message center that we all have, and you get ideas pinged to your head. Oh, do this. Okay. You ask yourself a question. Maybe it takes a few days, and then the answer comes to you. Where does that come from? Do you think it's just your subconscious mind working out the answer? Do you think that it's part of the universe, God, cosmic nature, whatever, that's giving you that information? Do you feel that we actually generate ideas ourselves, or it's actually us picking up ideas from an external source, as it were? What's your sort of view on that whole? I know I mentioned a few things there, but I think they all sort of fall under one wider category, unless you think different.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that kind of is asking the question, who are we? And who is God? And really, according to Kabbalah, so like most people would say, most people tend to see God as this, this old man in the sky who's judging us and who's punishing us if we do something wrong. But the real question is who and what are we? And so according to Kabbalah, the creator is referred to as the Ein Sof, the infinite one. And according to Kabbalah, there is just one infinite life energy, one infinite life energy that is, that was, and that will always be. And all of us, all of the people in this world, all of the world, the universe, it's all happening within that great consciousness. And that great one consciousness is infinitely loving, and it's infinitely kind, and it's the source of our being, right? We are all someone. We are all some of a great oneness. And so, some people would say your higher self, or the creator, or the Ein Sof, the infinite one. But there is this infinite life energy that is coming into this planet from the creator, and it's fueling all of us, and it's giving us life in every moment. And so, according to that idea, then where is this? Where do our ideas come from? Where does our inspiration come from? Well, it comes from the source of our being. And the source of our being is the creator, the Ein Sof, the infinite light. And a good analogy that I like to use to help people understand this is, imagine right now in your mind, imagine a man, right? Imagine a man in your mind and give him a name. What name would you choose?
I don't know, John.
John. So imagine John and, give him some clothes and imagine what he looks like, and imagine what he's wearing. So now John, is awake. You've kind of given consciousness over to John, right? From John's perspective now, how many people are there in the equation of life?
Well, if he's obviously unaware of the fact that I made him, it'd just be himself if there's no one else around. He would just think
Right.
that.
Right. So let's say, right. So let's say I'm imagining a guy, John. So now I'm giving John consciousness. So from John's point of view, he experiences himself, but he's also experiencing and searching for the source of his being, right? John is on a search to discover the great David, the great David, the source of my being. I want to find the great David. How do I find the great David? How do I connect with the great David? Right? From my point of view, John is just a figment of my imagination. From my point of view, there's just one person. It's just me, David, right? But from John's point of view, there's two people. There's him and there's the source of his existence. So that's really a metaphor to understand who we are and where our inspiration comes from, according to the Kabbalah, because all of us, we are all existing in the mind of the creator. We are all aspects of the creator. And so, and that consciousness is giving us life in every second. And just like if you were to stop thinking about John, even for a moment, John would cease to exist. So too, if the infinite consciousness that is giving us life in every moment would stop thinking us into existence, so to speak, we would cease to exist. So, according to that analogy, the creator is the source of our being. And when we are kind of tuning in and getting inspiration, we are tuning into the source of our being. That is our higher self. The creator is our higher self, and it's not disconnected from us, right? Just like John would be getting ideas and inspiration, those ideas would be coming from you because John is a product of your consciousness. And so, too, we are all products of the infinite consciousness of the creator, and we're always getting downloads from the source of our existence that are unique to us and unique to our wiring. But we have to be in a state of enough quietness or enough isolation or enough silence where we can tune into those quiet whispers. And that's what I call the intuition, right? That's the unconscious. That's the intuition. This is all coming from the source of our being, our higher self. And the key, I think, to living a fulfilling life is learning how to tune into and develop a really close connection with our own intuition, because that's how we tap into the guidance that is always available to us. But more often than not, we're out of alignment with that. We're stuck in our head. We're stuck in the distractions surrounding us. And so we are disconnected from our own intuition. And we weren't taught how to develop a relationship with that still, quiet voice that's always happening inside of us. And I think that's really the key to tuning in and tapping into more of the guidance that is available to all of us 24 hours a day.
Yeah, it's interesting as well because that sort of question is something that's been discussed in philosophy as well. What you mentioned about that, your John within the mind of David, for example. So some of the early philosophers argued that if you if humans didn't exist or sentience didn't exist, the universe wouldn't exist because the universe only exists because we perceive it. But then it came about that actually it was agreed that even if all of the sentient beings and obviously humans weren't here, that everything would still exist because it's the consciousness of God that is still there that creates that existence. So it's interesting that, as I said, these things have been discussed through different avenues, religion, philosophy, etc. But again, it's the same arguments. How do we know that we're conscious? Who is it that we are sort of part of in that respect? Whether it's sort of your theistic view of just God and then everyone else below, or panentheistic, where it's God is the universe and also separate from it. or that you believe in a sort of deism where it's God set the rules of the universe and sort of led it on its way and he doesn't get involved at all. But again, they're all sort of overlap in a way that we know that there's certain things must be true. It's like if you've got seven stories from seven different people that are reporting a crime, first thing you're going to look for is commonalities that are across the board. You said he was wearing yellow. Most people said he was wearing yellow. You two said red. Okay, we'll go with yellow. Or what was said? It's one of those things. So I think that's really really interesting. One final part, just on the Kabbalah stuff, because from my understanding, I spoke to a Jewish lady on here before actually. She said something along the lines of there's like five different depths to each sort of sentence in Kabbalah. I think it was Sod or something. Why is that? Do you think that was done on purpose, based on the fact that it depends on your level of not consciousness, but sort of your conscious awareness of how things really work determines how you read that sentence?
So there, yeah, I think maybe what you're referring to is the different levels of learning, right? Um, there is pshat, remez, drash, and sod. There is the literal meaning. Then there is the allusion to, kind of reading between the lines. Then there is the interpretation of the scholars, and then there's the secret meaning. And a lot of people ask, well, what is it? What is the secret? Can you just tell me the secret? I want to know that, I want to know the secrets. But the secrets of life and the secrets of Kabbalah are that they're like the building blocks of the universe. This is like the secret of life is it's an experience. Like, for example, like chocolate is a secret, right? I can show you what it looks like. I can tell you where to find it. I can give you all the ingredients on how to make it. But even if I've told you everything I know about chocolate, it's still a secret, because in order for you to really understand the depth of chocolate, you have to experience it. You have to go and you have to consume it, right? So too with the secrets of the universe, right? And the secrets of the personality code. It's like I can talk about all of these things, but until you actually experience yourself within kind of as within a framework, and you learn to see the different types of personalities and where you fit in that puzzle, you don't actually understand the secret. And so too, I think the the reason that so many people are searching for some of the deeper secrets to life now is because they want to have a deeper experience. They want to have a deeper experience of themselves beyond just feeling like, I'm David Bederman and I have a job and I go to my job, and beyond their kind of definition within society. People want to experience a deeper understanding of where they fit in the global scheme of things. They want to understand their life's mission. They want to discover their purpose. And discovering that is really a secret. It's the secret that gets revealed to each one of us individually when we go on this journey of self-discovery, when we learn how to rise above the kind of the invisible prison of personality, right? Learn to um, when we learn to relate to the world in a new way, beyond just how we're kind of programmed to relate, but we learn how to become flexible and we learn how to access some of the different energies that are available to us. Like, according to Kabbalah, there are 10 different energies in the world. And all of those energies, like power and strength and wisdom and emotion and beauty, right? But each one of us is coming through one of those 10 journeys. It's like there's 10 different colors in this world, and each person is coming through. Each person has kind of been given their own unique color to paint life with. But the journey of life and the journey of evolution and evolving of your consciousness comes when you learn how to access all of the 10 different colors on the palette, and you learn how to paint your life with different colors beyond just the one that you were given. And so I think people are really, we're all on this journey to discover the deeper secrets of life because we want to have an experience. We don't just want the information. What we want is the experience of transformation, of transforming, of evolving beyond just, who is David Bederman 1.0. And we want to learn how to transcend into a higher version of ourselves that can experience more, that can give more to the world, and that can impact the world more. And I think everyone wants to, especially today, wants to learn how to access those secrets because they want to plug into the most powerful and the most successful version of themselves. And I think that's why these ideas are so powerful, and that's kind of what this personality code is all about, helping people to discover in themselves.
I love about the chocolate example because it reminds me of one of the philosophical experiments called Mary's Room, where there's a room that's just grey, and all she's ever known is she's lived in this room, and she's given a book that is literally just about the colour red. It's an encyclopedia that explains the colour red. The question would be that if she walked out of that room, would she be able to recognise the colour red? And for me, it's exactly like that you said. The answer is probably no, because you have to actually experience that in order to attribute that word or that definition to. So yeah, it's an interesting point that you made about the chocolate there. Is there
It's funny
anything?
because
Sorry, go on.
yeah, I was just going to mention one of my kids is partially colorblind, so there's certain colors that he doesn't see, and it doesn't bother him, but there are certain parts of the physical world that he doesn't experience in the same way. And now they've invented these glasses that you can wear that actually enable colorblind people to see all of these other colors, and and it's interesting because we are all kind of colorblind in our own way. It's like what you said at the beginning. Most people think that behavior is just random, and they see other people kind of through the lens of themselves. They see other people as a projection of themselves. So people who are like us, we tend to, we admire them and we think they're cool and we think they're great. But people who are different than us, so we tend to kind of think, well, they're strange or they're different or they don't know the truth. But as you discover this unique kind of rainbow of personalities, so all of a sudden it's like you learn how to see the different colors of behavior, and you experience other people kind of like someone who's colorblind learning how to see colors from a new time, for the first time. When you discover all of these different um, behavior types of the personality code, it's like learning to see new colors because we've never been given a language to understand the different patterns in behavior. And all of a sudden, it's like this awakening. So I find it very powerful when people learn to see the different behavior types. They discover and they understand their partner and their children, their friends. They understand them in a new way. And it's like they're putting on these glasses that allow them to see colors in life and in relationships that they've never seen before.
Yeah, 100%. It's the whole. I think it's the Baader-Meinhof effect, where let's say you're looking to buy a new BMW, this particular model, because you're now focused on that and you're actually looking to buy one, you fucking see them everywhere. Same with if you're looking to buy a new dog, your boxer Labrador, you start seeing them everywhere. It's whatever your mind
Exactly.
focuses on. And as you said, if you're then aware of these things about personality traits or teachings of Kabbalah or these philosophical experiments or whatever football teams, whatever it's going to be, you start to notice that. So then the question would be, well, how can we improve the vastness of the things that we're aware of, because that, as with the colorblind glasses, improves your ability to see more things out in the universe, which then subsequently helps you to develop as a person, which, as you said, is the whole point of it really is the internal growth.
Yeah, I would say that it's a great question. I would say the first step that people can take in order to embark on a journey of improving their relationships and learning how to see the kind of the rainbow of behavior and personality that's out there, the first step is to shift from a position of judgment to a position of acceptance, to understand that the way you experience life, the way you deal with time, the way you process information, that's just one of a great multitude of different ways of experiencing the world. And so, if you can shift away from judgment and move into acceptance and learn how to get curious, instead of trying to force your romantic partner to do things in the right way, you can get curious and ask questions and discover, how is it that you experience the world? I like to be on time. I've noticed that you tend to be, a few minutes late for things often. I'm curious, how do you experience time when you're getting ready to go to an appointment? When does that uh, when does that realization hit that you got to start getting ready? And just to get curious and start to accept other people and their experience as different from ours, rather than thinking that my way is the right way. And if people could just be more like me, this world would be better. It's actually the opposite. And I think shifting from judgment into acceptance and curiosity is really the key to learning how to appreciate and learn to be able to see some of the colors of life that until now, we may not have been aware of.
100%. And once you have these discourse or communication with people, you start to realize that there can be patterns. People are often late because they are perfectionists. They want to be there exactly on the second, but they actually then they've got late because they try to be there. No, not too early because they don't want to wait around. But then because they're trying to be there by the millisecond, they've actually got late. They've not factored that in, or they might just not really care about. They might be quite laissez-faire and lazy. And that's not always the case. So even if you've got these sort of, and there were just two I just thought of, but there can be many more. But doesn't mean to say that because you've got this box of options that you've worked in your own mind over the last 30 years that can't change because even your perception of how you think about things can change with new information. And that's what everyone needs to be open to is that I could be wrong, but we tend to have confirmation bias, don't we? We allow information to be input that agrees with our ideas, and we reject information that doesn't. So it's quite a hard place to be.
Yeah, you mentioned the word patterns, and there really is a very simple system for understanding the patterns of behavior. And this is a lot of the work that I do when I work with couples, is helping them see the patterns of attraction and the patterns of behavior within the relationship, because it's just patterns. And when you start to see the patterns, all of a sudden, all of your relationships can improve dramatically in a really short amount of time, and also helping people understand the unconscious patterns within themselves, right? We are all responding to life according to our own patterns, but most of the time people don't see the unconscious patterns that they're repeating, and so they're stuck in a way of living life. And when you show people the patterns, when I teach them this language, so all of a sudden transformation happens very, very quickly. Like, people always say to me, they've done more with me in 3 months than they have in 3 years of therapy, because a lot of times therapy is not really giving people the tools to understand the patterns of their behavior. But when you help people see the kind of the structure for how they respond to life, all of a sudden transformation can happen really quickly. It's like Carl Jung. Uh, he has a famous quote. He says that we have to make the unconscious conscious, otherwise it will guide our entire life, but we'll just think it's fate, right? We'll just think it's meant to be. But when you can show a person the 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 unconscious patterns that they engage in, all of a sudden their unconscious response to life becomes conscious. They become aware of it. And then once you start seeing the patterns, you can't unsee them. And life and transformation can happen, can improve very, very quickly.
100%. And it's just down to the individual to want to take this course of action of going down the coaching route or, journaling or whatever it may be. And I think that's the crucial difference between therapy and coaching is that therapy tends to, and not all, I'm not tarnishing anything with the same brush, but a lot of the time therapy is revisiting past trauma and you keep revisiting that until you get past it. Whereas I think with coaching, it's more future focused and how we can develop moving forward, which I think is one of the reasons that it's a lot more popular now than it have ever has been.
1,000%. Yeah, therapy is incredibly powerful, especially in helping us process and resolve un unresolved trauma and patterns that keep repeating based on the past, and that is necessary a lot of times. But sometimes it also gets overdone, where there's this constant focus on the past, and the real power of transformation, I think, comes when, like you said, people are focused on the future. And that's really why coaching is so powerful, because it's focused on where do I want to get to, what's in the way, and how do I get there faster, and helping people draw out the wisdom that's already there internally, but that they might not know how to access on their own.
Absolutely. And it's one of the things that that's always puzzled me is that why, like, if that thing you ruined your life that happened, or, when you were young, or just your mindset, why do you keep revisiting that? Because you're now in the present, and every day that moves past, you're now going back to this point in time that was the most horrible time of your life. The whole point is to forget about it, not to revisit it. I've just never really understood that. I understand how it works and the reasons why, but it doesn't mean to say that I really understand why that's the best way of going about it. But again, that's just my own personal opinion. So how can
Tony
people?
Robbins, he says that the greatest addiction that we have is to our problems. And where most of the time, people, they say that they want to solve their problems, but more times than not, we end up creating an identity around our problems. I am this way. I can't do that. Oh, I'm a smoker. I'm an alcohol. I'm a this, and they tend to identify with their problems, because we have this great longing for identity. We have a great longing to find and understand ourselves, but a lot of times we end up creating our identity around past behaviors and around problems. And it really, creating a new life really is about creating a new story and telling ourselves a new story.
100%, and it's one of the things where we all want to be unique. We all want to be unique so badly that if we don't have anything positive that differentiates us, whether you're world famous in this or well renowned in that, we then, as you said, go back to these negative sides that, oh, I'm unique because this happened to me, it never happened to any of you, all right? That's why I'm like this. And it's like we try to find a way just to differentiate ourselves, make ourselves authentic, even though I don't really like that word to an extent. It's overused. But yeah. So if people wanted to reach out to you and study your work or speak to you personally regarding coaching, etc., where can they sort of find you?
So the best place to find me is on Instagram. My handle is David Bederman, Bederman, and also via my website, personalitycode.me.
Perfect. So, and you've got what referencing on there, and obviously your contact details, etc.
Yeah, it's all there. And yeah, the best way to connect with me is through Instagram. Just send me a message. I'd love to hear from you.
Perfect. And finally, is there anything that we've maybe not covered that you've got an itch to sort of get it out there?
We've covered a lot today, and I really appreciate you taking the time and inviting me onto your show. I think it's great, the conversations that you're having and the platform that you're building to share these ideas with the world. So I'm just really grateful for having an opportunity to dive in with you today. I had a great time. I think we had a great chat, and yeah, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks very much, David.